Welcome to the Minds Panel Show with your host, Satori Dean. And today we have the topic LobbyVoice. And we probably will talk a little bit about LobbyVoice, but I think we're just going to start the conversation just by talking about whatever, actually. I've been a little MIA recently, but I've been thinking about a lot of different things, and one of the things that has always been in my head is this notion of a collaborative intelligence. And I've been mentioning this too before, of us working together to solve certain problems, or just even the process of the Minds Panel Show. That's why I wanted the Minds Panel Show not to be like a necessarily like a podcast where I interview somebody, but it to be a discussion, because the power of a dialogue really helps. And generally speaking, whatever the topic is of a Minds Panel Show, or even a Infinite Imaginarium, never really sticks to our outline, and we let it flow how it goes. So this is going to be a little bit more freeform, and we probably will get into LobbyVoice. But today we have Straight Jack, which is also Johnny Quid on Minds, and we also have Lee Travis. Hey, what's up, Lee? How are you?
How you doing, Dan? It's great to be on the Minds panel again. And as far as LobbyVoice goes, it seems to be that it's one of those subjects for me, but it's only easy to talk about when there's something for it to apply to, because it's kind of hard to just describe it without its function being used. So I'm sure it'll come up in topic, but the collaboration thing, and I've been thinking about that too lately. It's like just the last few days or a week or so that I've sort of had a shift in my thinking, a slight shift, I guess. And so collaborative, we're all collaborating on Minds and stuff, but what are we all still doing, like on a day-to-day basis? That's my main question is, what is everybody else doing? And I'll tell everybody else what I'm doing, which isn't much, really. I'm doing a lot of enjoying my life, and I have a lot of good ideas, and I think that I think maybe I got a lot of crummy ones too, but it's up to everybody else to decide.
Oh, man. Oh, Lee, what have I been doing? Man, for years I took things for granted, to be honest with you. I had a big plan like we all do. You're supposed to come up with a 5-year plan, 5-year plan, 5-year plan, work your way, work your plan. But life catches up with you. Fuck. For years I did honestly pretty well. I had a career. And it gave me a lot of time off and a lot of money in my pocket. And I tried putting that into something else. And this was back in 2011. And I tried putting away to start my own theme variety-based online show. It was going to be called Straight Jacket Jake's Radical Power Hour. And it's a comedy-based show, and it's hysterical. But I invested a lot too, all out of pocket, because nobody was gonna front me this thing, because it was absolutely insane. But life fell apart. I was in the oil industry, which I'd never enjoyed, but it was a sacrifice I made that gave me the time and the money. And I thought if I did something actually positive because of it, then it might actually have been worth my time. Oil crashed, and then we all lost our jobs, and they all sent us home. And then the old lady's life kind of took a shit. And after being sued and then bankruptcy, I'm now turning about, if I'm lucky, I think it'll be 35 grand this year. I'm doing concrete, which is a huge slap in the face from drilling oil wells. In the sun, slaving every day. I get up at 4 in the morning, and I'm lucky if I'm home at 8 o'clock at night. And it's a motherfucker, to be honest with you. But regardless, this has been amazing. I just stumbled onto Minds about 4 months ago, maybe a little bit longer. And the old lady actually found it first, as alternatives to Facebook, which I just could not stand. I didn't use it that much, but it's just, I mean, it's horrible. And anyways, this has been like huge. I don't even think inspiration is really the necessary term, because you think about collaborative thought, and you think about transcendency, and the production of energy, and just moving forward. I mean, like you said, if you just a group discussion can really do so much just for one thing. Um, the think tanks, but there's more to it than that, because there's a lot of genuine heart-on sleeve expression here, and more importantly, you are, for the most part, surrounded by like thinkers, or at least people that want to. And it's been incredible. And the fact that I'm even like participating in these things again, or the fact that now I gotta, just I'm gonna be on Minds Radio really soon, and start from there, and which is something now I got these things to try and do after work and all this other crap, because then you get your 2 days of breath on the weekend. You're supposed to just hang in there and hunker down. But fortunately, me and the old lady have been hip for a while. I don't have television. We don't we don't do any of that shit. I come home and it's off the grid as I can be. Um, but fuck, dude, I don't. What do I do all day? Yeah, even when I'm at work, I'm constantly gone. I'm a space cadet. I'm a dreamer. I always have been. Um, I don't know. When and fucking slave trade. But I don't know. I got good ideas too, man. But I know a lot of them suck, and unfortunately, so far, well, I've only been able to put out a few good ones, and most of the ones I put out sucked. But I don't know, man. I'm totally open to all of this. It's more than it is. It's just insane, and it's amazing, and I'm really thankful for it, to be honest with you, because more people need this. This is real. Nobody's talking about anything. You don't talk about anything on other social media sites. It's just the same rhetoric, and it's programmed, and it's just horrible. Really, it's just getting worse. And all the events that are going on in this country, just in the last 6 months. I mean, you'd even just say 3 weeks, but it's fucking insane. And at least I know that there's this really wide array of conscious critical thinkers that are just like, well, this is stupid. We don't need to do this. And instead of like the same, because even amongst this community for, years ago or whatnot, before social media, before the instant communications, uh, groups were all over, but they always had their own agendas. They always had this separatist ideology that they cling to because they're their egos, and they were selfish. And this is different. And more importantly, because of the wide array, you can hold people accountable. Really, just for their own words, and that's important in the very beginning, when you have to create structure, when you have to have a center for all of it. Accountability is huge. And yeah, I don't even know too much about Lobby Voice. I've been so damn busy myself that I've only seen snippets of it. Uh, but I do know I have read up on the Divi DAO, and if it's similar in the sense, which is that's a marketplace almost for these collaborative ideas, and I think that's important too, because we can't be doing these things. I mean, I don't know about you two. Maybe you are self-sustained in your own right, but I'm not. And it'd be nice if we as a group could not just help myself, but others. And we're not helping anybody. We're not helping ourselves, and we're certainly not helping the group. We're just making other people happy. Fuck.
Yeah, and I think that's very similar to what Straight Jack was saying. Is, well, for me, I mean, so when I first took that long break from Minds, like at the beginning of the year, so I've been on Minds for a little bit over a year now, and Minds, like what Straight Jack was saying, like I've been always kind of, for lack of a better word, alternative culture and into all these different ideas, and always kind of been doing my own thing, and been involved in different little things when I was like in high school, it was about like punk bands or whatever, and I would be forming gigs in backyards and trying to do my own thing, and always trying to do my own thing. And but then I finally got, even when I went into cooking, uh, I worked at this really one of the best restaurants in LA, and I learned a lot there. But our boss was probably the worst person I've ever met in my life. And so when I quit with three other people, and we started to do pop-up restaurants and trying to do our own thing. And then that didn't necessarily take on. Then I started working farmers markets and doing catering, and our whole thing was organic. Uh, what do you call it? Composable. Yeah, composable packaging. So we didn't use plastic, and that was really hard because our overhead was so much, and we couldn't keep up. I mean, I did that for a year, and I probably didn't like. I just got enough money to make it through every week, and so that kind of took its toll on me. Even though I liked it the best, as far as I was writing my own menu, I was doing cool events, and I just got enough money to make it by every week. But that takes its toll on you. And then I was like, finally, me and my partner, she ended up having a second kid, so we stopped that. And then I went back to the kitchen, and all the time when I will go back to the kitchen, like the last time I took a major break from mines, I opened up a restaurant with somebody, and it was like I was part of this group that we opened up this restaurant, and it was cool. I learned a lot, but the same bullshit was happening. Like I mean, I thought we had this understanding that if I help them open up this restaurant, then I'll get a shot to, because where it was in where I live and where that's at, it took me a long time to get there, and they were opening up a second one where it was closer to where I live, which is down near downtown. And so even before I got hired, I kind of told them, hey, I want to work downtown, blah blah blah, this and that. So I thought we had this understanding, but once we started working, they liked how I worked. And I guess the spot that we had is more of the restaurant, and the other one was just going to be like this satellite place. And they didn't want me to go to the downtown one. I was like, man, like it kills me traveling all this time over here. And I thought like we were cool, and I thought if I proved like how hard I work and that I sacrifice opening up the restaurant for you, that you help me out and give me a shot to kind of work closer to home and kind of help run the downtown one. And so that fell through. But all I did was I woke up, worked the restaurant. I gave them like 3 hours too. Like, I mean, you work your time, but it's never the exact time. And I didn't care because I liked it, and I wanted to learn how to open up a restaurant. And at a certain point, I thought I felt like I was getting taken advantage of, but at the same time, I didn't spend any of my money. I would just wake up, go to work, and then come back home and fall asleep. And then when I had days off, like one day, like maybe the day that I had the 2 days off or one day off, I would go out like drinking, and then I would like just have my hangover, and then I was like, oh shit, now I have to go back to work, and then I started the whole cycle over again. And I literally didn't do anything besides just wake up, work, come back home, and like sleep. And I mean, it was fine, but there was a part of me that didn't like that, and that was the part of me. And then so speed up to what happened recently. I always had the idea for the Minds Panel show. And since I first did that interview on Pirate Radio, and I was like, you know what, I need to have some balance. Like I hate the whole idea of working just to work, and just kind of like being in this like kind of like robot automatic mode, because for most people, especially like I know for people that like work like what you were saying about working with the concrete, like it's hard, like it's physically hard. Like you will like to do other stuff, and you probably do other stuff, but it's hard because when you physically drain yourself like that, it's hard to do the stuff that you probably want to do, which is whatever you express yourself. And that's how I found it when I was working too much, and I knew I needed that part of my life. And I think a lot of us here on Minds, that's what draws us to Minds, is that we're able to express ourselves in whatever way it is and share information. If that's the way you know, talking about whatever's going on in the world, or is it art, or is it videos, or is it poetry, or whatever it is. And that's where I see the future coming to. You know, like we talk about this in the Divi DAO, the future of work, and we were saying what brought us to the Divi DAO. And you know, things are getting more and more automated, and that's a good and bad thing. But it frees us up we're almost to the point where it's going to free us up to the time where we should only be limited about our minds and our creativity. And this is where I see, hopefully, this is my hope and future for humanity, is that we're able to be free. And I think not only that I hope we need this, but I think we really do need this. The state of the world that we're in, like if we don't come up with fucking new ways to live, like we're gonna fucking destroy this world. We're already destroying our souls and destroying our lives with like the normal standard way of living. It doesn't work. And not only does it not work for the individual and for society, how much wasteful we are and all this kind of stuff, but also for the whole planet at large. And that we need to think differently. We need to work differently. And I'm hoping, and I see signs of it, of this is the loose way of us working it out, like what's happening on Minds, what's happening on the fringes, what happens in Scenario, what happens on Divi DAO, and there's probably tons of other projects that are happening, because you know I've been in other meetings with other different blockchain projects, or even you talked earlier about the what is it, the awakening of the sovereignty of awakening or something like that. But I mean, there's different projects like that, and I think everybody kind of wants that. And I think once what you're saying is that hopefully we could put away our ego enough to where we could start merging our collective, because the real value in things is more than just money. You know, like there's value in time, there's value in your intelligence and creativity, value in all sorts of different things. Like we only value a certain type of thinking, and but that, and this is where my thing about the mosaic of minds comes from, that different mindsets, though differently, but maybe tied together by this overall structure of creating the new story for humanity. This is something that always comes up in our stuff, and that's what I always like to go back to, is that it's going to take everybody in that sense. And it's really hard because at times, and this is my process of me like leaving for a week, I was like, what the fuck am I doing? And like, like, what am I doing? Like, is this like, can I actually do something like this? Or like, is this like even worth it? Like, I saved up enough money to make it by, and I've been kind of trying to make this alternative lifestyle work, and really it's good. I love talking. I love doing these different projects, but there also comes to the point too where the fucking reality of life hits you, and you're like, oh my god, like I gotta worry about bills. I gotta worry about me fucking eating next week. Like, what am I doing? What am I really doing? Is it worth it? Like, are these assholes really worth this?
Hey, dude,
Dude, that's awesome. That's absolutely fantastic that you did that, dude. It really is. It's courage, man. And you have to be able to just step outside yourself. And it's more importantly, not yourself. You actually stepped inside yourself. And you're like, fuck this. I'm going to try this. But it's that whole other world. Yeah, it catches up with you. But that's the one that isn't real. That's the one that's...
Yeah.
It sucks. And when you know, and it just gets worse. It's like a giant burden on your shoulders that you're not doing these other things. It's calling your name. And you just got to keep going back out there. And, it just drives a man nuts. It really does.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, that's just, and it's so funny that you said, what are you doing? Because that's exactly what I've been asking myself lately. But
Yeah, I mean, it is. It is, dude. Well, there's a lot of us that are in that same, we find ourselves in that, especially when you just rather do something else. It's calling your name, and the universe is calling your name. And you feel really fucking stupid not answering it. And what else are you gonna do? You can't. That's just gonna come to a head, man. You're either gonna just continue and find a way and figure it out, or you're gonna have to just go back to the other one. I don't want to do that. I don't think you do either.
Yeah, I don't either. But Lee, you're gonna say something, Lee?
You guys just got me thinking, just kind of reflecting on my own life. Because, as early as I can remember, which is probably around puberty, I mean, I remember I remember things that happened before that, but not like I do up to that point. And I started out working in a village inn as a dishwasher at 13, and I dropped out of high school, and I supported myself. I rented a bedroom from a college kid that had a little apartment near a college, and that's how I lived for a few years. And I at that point I was sort of unknown, like I was a little kid to the world, but to me I was an adult. I started my working life at that point, dishwashing. And it was probably the scummiest dish kitchen that you ever saw, but I had it handled, And that's how I made my money, and I had a different concept about money at that age, and I think kids do. At that age, I was still a kid, but I was, from my perspective, I was an adult, man, and I was doing everything I needed to do. I didn't really, I reflect now, and I can see the different points in which my brain, my mind has evolved. Through all the way up to when I was 20, and then, the latest evolving point when now that I'm 42, and so I'm living this life, listening to the world. And hey, do you have a straight jack?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
There we go. Thanks. So yeah, I mean, I started out early working and I'm paying my way, but I understood money differently. I pretty much, thought at that time about money and about my possessions and about being responsible for things like insurance and stuff like that. I remember when I was like 18 and I had to get insurance for a vehicle. It was the first time I got a vehicle at 18. I didn't have a vehicle early on because I couldn't afford one, and so it didn't make sense to get insurance. But at that point, I got insurance, and I got a paycheck, and the insurance was the equal to my paycheck. And I said, at that point, I said, fuck it, I'm not going to get insurance because I just worked hard for this money, and I lived a very basic life. When I was 20, I traveled all around the United States and climbed. I climbed in Utah, I climbed in Rocky Mountain National Park in California, climbed all over, and everything I did, like I didn't have this drive to go be something other than just experience the nature and climb and get better in myself and develop myself. Like that was while everybody was concentrating going to college, I learned to just develop myself. And it's because I didn't go to school. I dropped out. I got a GED at some point, and I learned to weld, and I got certifications in steel, and I ended up working in the steel industry for a while. when I was like 16, 17. I've been in the working industry for a long time, for 30 years, and I'm like I just, you know, I don't work for the world because I don't want to give my skills away to a world that doesn't appreciate it. And I don't want to build anything that's going to be destroyed. I mean, I've built when I was 25, I built probably like 40 houses. I had a construction company, and all those houses are gone. They burned in forest fire. And you know, it's like, so you put all this energy into this stuff, and it's just material stuff, and it goes away. And I thought at the time that these things, I put all my heart and energy into it, and I was trying to build a life as well, which I learned that, you know, once I got a family and I got kids, I learned that, you know, that the world is just, you know, going to take everything from you, and really your whole life should be about, you know, I've always had this deep feeling that your life should be about creating value. It should be about something. I mean, you know, that's what history was all about. When we were little kids, we learned about these people that they did things, and they made something. They made a legacy of themselves, and they invested in themselves, and they knew things. And it seems like people don't do that. That's, you know, that's sort of the thing that stayed in me, you know, because I went to school early on, and when I was a kid, there was civics, and that sort of made a pretty big impression. And so later on, while everybody was going to school, I was learning too. I went to the library, and I learned what I was interested in. And mostly, I learned Eastern philosophy. When I was 13, I picked up the Tao Te Ching, and I never stopped reading it. You know? And so I've got a 30-year history in construction. I did some restaurant work all the way up until about 20, and then I just ended up in construction because that made more sense and it made a lot more money. I went into Southern California. I learned how to do earth building with Meg Wheatley, and he's a Turkish guy that does ceramic construction, ceramic homes, where you take all the adobe and you build the structures, and then you fire them with oil, with old motor oil. And so, you know, and then I went in to Taos, New Mexico, and I learned to build earthships, and I've done you know, rammed earths, I've done straw bale, cob, I've done every kind of natural building, as well as conventional construction. Like for 10 years straight, all I did in California was tile. I did tile in Boulder, Colorado. I tiled crazy things, amazing things. You know, that I hope that'll, you know, someday I could live in a place like that. You know, I've built things that, wow, it's like I wish I could build that. But now that I've got things, I've got land and things like that, I don't build those things because they're not necessary. You know, it's like, oh, it'd be nice to go at that for 160 hours and make something really cool with that. But I really don't have the time and energy to do that. You know, it's like, is that what I want to do? And when I'm asking the world, you know, like, what is it that everybody is doing? You know, why go to work? Why? I mean, okay, we need to eat. That's great. I need to eat too, and so I grow food, and I'm trying to build greenhouses and trying to make things. I have to fight everything. You know, I have to fight nature. I have to fight the changing weather. You know, I mean, when I was a little kid, the weather didn't change all the time, but you know, it's obvious with the way modern industrial, you know, poisoning of the environment has changed the environment, you know. And I just look at, like, wow, we have all these things that we have to fight, and yet we all still go to work and we still make the machine work, you know, and the machine is still there. And there's another life. There literally is, like, we can change that life. Like right now, we have more power, all of us. It's amazing how much power we have. Like, all you have to say, you know, I make wonder pots. I invented this thing a few years back, about 8 years ago. I can't remember exactly, but the wonder pot, and so I make those, and all I have to say is I'm going to get, you know, I kind of jokingly, there was an old donut commercial, the Dunkin' Donut commercial, and time to make the donuts. Well, I say, well, it's time to make the wonder pot. And I don't work very hard. I make like 15 of them. You know, that's all I need to make. And we get orders of 100 or 200 every couple of weeks. And so that, you know, gets it gets me enough Bitcoin or whatever I need to do to sustain this. I don't really need money, and I don't work very hard for it, because honestly, society is terrible. We've destroyed this world, and it saddens me. People have sent me articles lately about how there's these little places. There's places in Europe, and there's places, I think, in Nevada or California, Northern California, where they're doing bison. They bring the bison back. But honestly, like I live in the Southwest, where the ancients used to live, and that was probably before they didn't. The bison didn't live in these areas because it's much too hot and it's cactus land. They lived in the prairie. That's honestly what is real. The gas and oil is all around me. In fact, I'm quite connected to the gas and oil industry. And just I know a lot about it. I never worked in it, but it's amazing. Like where I'm at, there's not a single. You can look at a map, and the map is literally blacked out. If you saw little dots for every well, and you put that map out, and you had the little dots on, and the little dots were just a little bit bigger than the area of the well, the entire map would be blacked out. That's literally how dense the natural gas is where I live. And we've created this world, this modern world, and we're all in the name of progress. And we haven't done anything. We haven't progressed anywhere. And I've thought about these things all along, since I was a kid. And applying when you're a kid and you're applying, you're teaching that you understand the universe. My teaching was pretty much the Tao Te Ching. I started to understand the world with that, and I applied those principles to the entire world. And I realized that the entire world didn't apply those principles to anything. In fact, it was quite rare, to know the I Ching. When I was a little kid, I used to cast. When I was like 15, 16, I used to cast I Ching. I used to cast the sticks. I used to divine. I actually got a work at some point doing divining water. Like witching wells, and just looking at the world completely different than everybody else, and I didn't really understand. I always kind of felt misplaced or out of time, or like nobody really appreciated what I understood, and so I didn't really talk much. I didn't tell a lot of people a whole lot of stuff about me. I kept pretty private, because it's hard to relate to people that that are really connected to the world, to the material world, to the events of the material world. The latest football game or whatever's on the TV. I've never really had a TV. I had kids, and I never had a TV with them. And the world that's like, it's pressure. It's all around you, and I don't have much because I've avoided, mostly that's what I've done with my life. I've avoided the world, and to avoid the world, you got to live a really simple life. You can't have a lot of possessions, and you can't have a lot of aspirations or need to have possessions. I've spent a lot of time with just a backpack. I lived in a van in California. That was the best life ever. I could keep my paycheck. I didn't have to spend it on rent and electric and all the bills that everybody else had. I just lived in a van, and I had all my tools underneath my bed, and I had a surfboard, and I got up in the morning. I took a shower at the Coast Guard, and I read the wave report, and surfed a few hours, and then I went to work. I went to work, and I had, Southern California food. I had avocados and a little bottle of wine. It was amazing. That was a great lifestyle when I was younger. Um, it's an amazing thing, this life that we have, and we're wasting it. We're wasting it, and we're giving it away to these people that want to sell us their shit. And it doesn't matter if it's Crisco that was invented for machine oil or grease, and then they couldn't sell it for that, so they decided to make a food product out of it. I mean, this is the kind of world that we live in. And when I was a kid, I didn't think that that's the world that we live in. I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked. I felt like I woke up in a different universe, because that's not how I thought about the world. And it's like a nightmare, if you ask me. Because I was really connected to things. I was always in the nature. I was always hiking. I lived in Colorado. I hiked all the mountains, peaks, everywhere. I spent every day I would just go out. I would do enough work when I lived in the mountain towns to pay my rent and get more climbing gear. I didn't care about going to college. I learned things. I had a computer, and I learned about computing. But really, it's like, how do we come together now? The collaboration thing, everybody's asking the questions, what do we do? And all we really need to do is live. But what we need to do is we need to figure out how to cheat the man, because the man is coming down on you on every way, and there's nothing you can do unless you get together, because I've been divided from the world my whole life. It's quite a lonely place, honestly. I've found a lot of people that are really good people, but I've had to let them go live their lives and not really be a part of their lives because they're too involved in the material world. I have land that came about through hard work, but it's nothing special. It's nothing near water, and it's all about water collection. I'm a desert rat. It's dry. It's a harsh life to be like a lizard or a scorpion. Those things live next to me. They're my brothers, But anyway, I think it's very interesting. Let's collaborate. Let's bring people together. Let's ask, what are we doing? These ideas are amazing, and we can apply those to a world. And I've seen a vision of the world, and that world is that we can recycle everything and get rid of all the trash and make it into environments where we grow food, like earthships, and we create. We don't devastate the world. We clean up all the trash, and we build small permacultural ecosystems together. And we do that together, and it takes hard work, but at least we're working for ourselves and for each other. And we don't have to worry about who owns what, and we don't have to worry about ownership, because honestly, ownership it's not even within our right. We live in a land where the people, the traditions of the people, weren't about ownership of the land, and really that is the law of the land. And the law that's taken the land hostage is taking it hostage through violence and force, and it's wrong, and it's criminal, and it has no justification. And all of us are being harmed by it every day. Just the stress, the stress itself harms our cells and our bodies. We're constantly having to fight this stress. We can't grow. How can we grow? How can the cells in our body grow when we have a low level stress? And we have 4 negative thoughts for every positive thought for every given second. We need to claim, make the claims, and stand together and do this work and live together. You know, let's build. Where I live, the earth is perfect for building. It's adobe clay. I mean, all you got to do is dig it up, screen it out, get the the junk, the rocks, the plant stuff out of it, and add water and add some straw and some horse manure. And bam, you got some building blocks. You got cop. You can build walls. You can support beams for a roof. You can do plaster. Man, it's amazing what you can do with the earth with very little materials. They're all natural. They're all free. How do we get together? I mean, everybody needs the paradise. Everybody wants to live in the paradise. I don't live in paradise. It's harsh. I live with the scorpions and the snakes and stuff. And we have a respect for each other. And as far as the water, it's a precious thing, you know, and we don't have rights because we don't come together to have rights with those things. The government now has the rights to the water. And they have the right to poison it, and they do. And the only reason why they have that right is because we haven't stood up together and said enough. But as long as everybody's working, and I've vowed to not work, I'll live a life of poverty, even if I have no possessions. I vowed not to do it. I'm not going to build a world where it tears the fabric of everything apart. And I don't know how to. I don't know how to tell everybody else to not do that because they have families, man. And how do you bring your kids up? Well, we got to ask these questions. We got to talk about them, and that's how we'll be able to collaborate and make it happen. But somebody's going to talk.
Yeah, and I think that's where it comes back to this notion of lobby voice, but also to the other notion that you have, and it's not just your notion, but it's this notion, and I'm always with this, and the term you came up with it is wiki-being. And wiki-being is about asking yourself of who you are as a being. And I think this is I think a lot of ways what I see what's happening of this whatever progression that we're having of this new evolving hopefully that we do. I think a lot of times, you know, with the whole blockchain stuff, is that they're asking they have it backwards, in my opinion. They're asking, okay, we need to do this to change, you know, all the rearranging the deck chairs on the Titanic or rearranging the outside without asking really what do you want, you know, of your life or who you are and what do you know, always kind of like that's why in the Infinite Imaginarium we have two parts to Infinite Imaginarium. We have the inner Imaginarium where you're supposed to like work out whatever you're going on in your mind or your head or learning about yourself. And the outer Imaginarium is the whole blockchain kind of stuff and how those sync up. Because I mean, there is already enough stuff for what you were saying. You know, we have all this kind of like waste, and the only reason we see it as waste is because we live in this society where they have like brainwash us to make it you know, disposable world that we have of microwave dinners and plastic this and plastic that, and it's just so someone could keep on making 50 cents on us every single time we buy another disposable whatever. And but that just by changing our thinking we could use that stuff to build stuff that lasts, and we no longer do this, and this is part of the reason why this one project that I mentioned in one of our groups, the new group of Gov Spiders, the core, and they were talking about building, you know, like this community, and I mentioned about open source ecology, and his whole thing is that this guy, he was a physics student, and he realized once he graduated, he's like, what the fuck can I do with this with my degree of physics, like it actually doesn't even actually do anything. And so he went and like went on a farm to like learn how to actually like do stuff and to make things. And he realized that everything that he needed for that farm was expensive. Like, you know, he once his tractor broke down, like it was just like he wanted to do something to be self-sustaining, but he ended up being more in the hole of being tied to owe people money because he needed to fix the tractor because the tractor broke down, or he needed to buy a new whatever, and that tool cost too much. And he's like, why are these things costing so much? And like, why are they breaking down? And like, how do we get out of this cycle? And so his whole thing is like making open source. He has this thing. It's called the the civilization toolkit, and there's I think it's like 52 or 53. I forget. But he kind of boiled it down to what were the essential things you need to like build a society or have base level civilization in a sense. And so and making those open source and making them practical and be able for anybody to use who wanted to do it, and not this whole idea that we have of this ownership and extracting value of people instead of empowering people and making value. It's all about, oh, how can I extract value from someone else? And like that's why we have all these disposable things, because then you need to go buy it the next day, and why we don't build things that last, and all this kind of stuff. And that that so we have enough tools, we have enough resources and everything to do whatever we want to do, but we never. And this is part of our problem with the progress that we're supposedly making. Like, oh, okay, we have a new cell phone, or we have these new gadgets, and all this is progress. But no one asks is like, oh, what are we going to do with this new tool? And basically, if you look at majority of the people, what do they do with their new tool is that they either play mind-numbing games, which I mean, in some sense, yeah, if you want to like spend a couple of downtime playing a video game, that's fine. That's up to every individual. But you know what I mean? Like when we're not doing stuff, like not using the full potential of these new gadgets to really create a world where we could kind of basically do what we're here to do. And I think for each individual, it's a little bit different. But I think fundamentally, it comes down to this base thing: is that we're here to learn, to be creative, and to express ourselves in art. And I use art in the loosest sense of the word. Like, building things is art. Long as you're putting your own stamp onto it. Writing poetry, music, all this kind of stuff. Like, I remember I had this one conversation with my girlfriend in college, and I was like, everything's art. And I was like into this whole like beatnik phase or whatever, and I was just getting crazy with my thoughts. And she's like, oh, even it's like, how is a plant an artist? And I was like, oh, they're artists of making oxygen. And I was just expressing your nature, whatever it is. And that's what we're here to do. But we don't do that because we're so tired of, oh, we need to do this to get the new gadget, or and yes, when you have a family, you do have obligations to provide a house and the basic needs, and it is very hard to shuffle out that. Even for me, like I don't have a kid or a family or anything. I'm single. I have very little things. Like I don't own a car. I actually don't even own a smartphone for the purpose that I don't want. Really, I want base level bills, so I could do whatever I kind of want to do in a sense. And so like I this is my design, and what you were saying about being poor and being able to just live in that sense. And it's hard too, because I'm 32, so I also think in the future, like, oh shit, what the fuck, like I'm barely making it day by day. What's gonna happen later on in my life? And those thoughts always kind of get to me. But what Jack was saying is that 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 stuff of ownership, of having materials and living this life, that's the illusion. That the real life is what we're trying to do here and now, what other people are trying to do, and it's just basically being and you know, being able to express yourself, being able to explore, being able to be creative, being able to just live life. And we're so caught up in this thing, and and it is illusion, but it's also real. Like, you know, like it's really really hard to be like, oh, I'm just gonna go and like quit my job and do whatever I want to do. But even at that, a lot of people have that confused too, of what they say, I'm gonna do whatever I want to do, but they don't even know what that is that what they want to do. And they think, oh, and this is another struggle that I have with myself personally, of how much of whatever, you know, like especially when I was younger, my thought of doing whatever I wanted to do was to just go out and like party, and but I was like playing this template of something that was like projected onto me, that I needed to go out and spend 3 days at a rave or whatever, and this is me being free. Which in some ways it was, but in some ways I was just playing this template, and in a lot of ways, you know, being out in nature, kind of like what my term is, like going underneath the tree and really seeing who you are and being comfortable with who you are, and and it's really hard just to be. Like, it should be easy to be able to be yourself and to be all right with yourself, but that's probably the hardest thing in this world to do. And a lot of us don't even, could spend our whole lives not even asking that question. And the same thing with Lee was saying is, once again, in college, I had this girlfriend who bought me that the Tao Te Ching, and when I read it, like it really like changed my mind. Like the non-dualistic nature of the poetry was just something that was so eye-opening to me, and I think for me it helped me a lot to understand the nature of the world, because we still think that the world, and it's easier to think of things linearly, and this is what they teach us in school, you know, cause and effect and this linear way of thinking, but that's like such a low level way of thinking, that the non-dualistic and this dynamic nature of learning or creativity, the natural way where the world works, is something that's really um, in deep buried down in us, but it's so backwards how everything is, that it's really hard for us to really be that, in the sense to learn, you know, the cycles of nature. Like we're so, and this is the problem. I read this article, and I have a friend. She always has these problems like sleeping, and she has insomnia, and a lot of people have this problem. And I don't necessarily have a problem with the sleeping, but most of it has to do to where we're out of tune with the natural cycles of the world. You know, we live in this artificial light, in the house, that, you know, it doesn't matter what time of the day it is, we could turn on the lights and it could be, and it messes up with our physiology. And I read this other book. It was called the Wheels of Consciousness, and in it he talked about how the evolution of our bodies, and how we recently gotten away with that, um, since with modern society, and but there used to be this natural flow of how we rested and woke up, and then we had these like different cycles, and everything that the Taoist way of thinking is that they use nature to make allegories for how life is, and we've been so out of tune with that that it's hard for us to go back to who we are, like to ask ourselves these questions, and we even try to avoid uh, even the pain and suffering to to the extent that we create more pain and suffering. I think that's a major problem. I mean, some of it is by design if you think about it in the larger picture, but a lot of it is, the road to hell is paved with the best intentions, and you know, we 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 don't even know what we're doing or who we are, each individual, much less to try to tell somebody what to do and what to think, and that we focus so much on the outside, and we need to do this to change the world, and we need to do that and this and that, but we never direct that same energy to our inner lives, to the inner story, and that we're really out of sync. And even for us, maybe, and even too, I think if you focus too much in the inside, not on the outer too, you get out of sync. And I know I'm out of sync a lot as well. I mean, I don't have the answers, but I think that this process of trying, in a sense, to ask the right questions, or the attempt just to think about who I am, what I want to do, and because you could go into abstract thoughts about um, heaven or hell or the next life or whatever, but all we know for sure is that we have the now, right here, and how are we gonna uh, express that and enjoy that fully? I mean, a lot of us, even in our heads, live in the past or live in the future, and we miss what's happening right now with us. And recently, I had this kind of like moment where it kind of shook me up because my dad um, is having some health problems, and so when he told me, it kind of like threw me back because I think in a lot of ways I mean, I always been close to my family, but for that moment, I was thinking, man, I've been kind of taking them for granted. Like if my parents were always going to be here, and yes, in a lot of ways, I got to live my own life. But part of living my own life is with my family. I mean, I find a lot of uh, I'm really close to my family, and I mean, some of the greatest times in my life is just sitting around uh, eating a meal with them. I mean, I used to do these brunches with the whole family and extended family, and it's kind of the whole reason I kind of even went into cooking was because of my grandma. Like the place where I felt the safest and most free to be me and enjoyed life was in my grandma's kitchen. I grew up. My both of my parents worked really hard when I was little, and so I grew up in my grandma's house. And I mean, I used to just sit in the kitchen and watch her cook. And like when anybody came over to my grandma's house, it was to be in the kitchen, and they would just hang out there and just talk and be free to just laugh or whatever. Not the whole world melted away. None of our problems, any of that bullshit. It was all about just being right there in that moment of laughing, of sharing stories, of just being. And so, in a lot of ways, I always am striving to recreate that. And recently, in doing whatever I'm doing right here, uh, that I do want to create that feeling of what I told Lee this before about when we get together in the Infinite Imaginarium or in the Minds Panel show, we have this nice little flow of where we're just talking, and I actually I kind of wanted to go back. I'm so glad we had this show this way. Is as when I first was working this thing out, we had everything under the sun, and it was me and Have Faith. We would just talk, and we had whoever on, and we'll just had no agenda. It was just talking and hanging out, and it always will lead to something like this. And this is where the beauty of wiki being is that when you're just talking or whatever, and you feel comfortable to express yourself, you come to these insights or these satori's. If it kind of goes to my names, my handle on mine, Satori D, and it's important because fucking we get so caught up on whatever that we don't we don't stop to ask ourselves the critical questions of like, who are we, what are we doing, and like, is this really what we want to do? And a lot of people make excuses about stuff, and recently with one of my friends, she's always been giving me these excuses, and I'm like, that doesn't have anything to do like with like, just who cares about all this other stuff? Just and one of the main things is like, she's about like school, and I'm like, yeah, school will help, but that doesn't mean that you can't learn it yourself. You know what I mean? Like, if that's what you want to do, then you could just do it. Like, you don't need to pay money to do it. I mean, yes, in some respects, the certificate will help you to do that, but and I always had this in college, and I was like Lee too, where I would ditch my classes to read books in the library, and then after school when we would hang out at parties, I would want to talk about whatever I was into at that time. And I remember this one time I was at this party with my ex-girlfriend and her friends, and we were having this conversation. It was about like philosophy, and then one of my friends, she's like, "Oh, let's not talk about politics at this party." And I'm like, "Well, first of all, it was philosophy, not politics, but I get your point." And it's like, but what, like, here we are in college, supposed to be, and this is like what I never got with some of my friends in college. They were like really smart, but they made it seem like, oh, school was the only time that you were supposed to learn, and that outside you didn't have to do that. But like, it's the other way around. Like, life is about learning and being creative and thinking, and school is just supposed to just help that along. Like, it's not like I never got that, and I would always get upset. I'm like, dude, I don't want to talk about fucking the last time we were drinking and someone puked. Like, I want to talk about Allen Ginsberg. I want to talk about this book or that book or Nietzsche or whatever. I find I was like and this is what kind of like make me go more and more away from my friends, was that they would always want to go to the bar and like, and it was fun sometimes, but at a certain point it was like, dude, we're like I remember all the time there always came this point where they're like, oh, what do you want to do for your birthday? And I'm like, I either for my birthday, what I really wanted to do was go on like a trip to out in nature, or go to the bookstore and buy books. And then everybody wanted to go to a bar and like get shit faced, and which, I mean, I have no problem like smoking weed or even drinking, but I'm like, dude, we do that every fucking weekend. Like, how is that special? For like, your birthday is supposed to be something to celebrate, do something special, and we're doing the same thing that we do every fucking week. Like, for me personally, I was like, I never got that part with my friends, and this is kind of how I grew away from them in a sense. And I told this story too earlier on about Minds with Facebook. I never used Facebook like how everybody used Facebook. I would use Facebook to just write my poetry and try to share it with people, and they never knew how to respond to my stuff. And when I got onto Minds, like, it was funny because I had an idea of Facebook when I came into Minds. So I had a picture of myself, and I forgot even what my first earlier postings were. But I noticed that me expressing myself was what got the attention on Minds, and I just went wild with it. Like, it's hard to keep that, but I think if we keep on asking ourselves the right questions and projecting that out to attract the right people, which we're already doing, but I think the next step is to form. So, the first step is wiki being. and which we're already doing. Wikibeing is about who you are as a person, and then how that connects to everybody else. And then Lobby Voice, I think for me, is about, okay, now how do we get what we want to do, who we are, connecting those pieces, and then how do we project that voice or lobby for that to happen in the real world? And we don't need to ask permission from anybody. I mean, I think that's the biggest thing. Like, you know, the that is the biggest stumbling block for anybody. And I think even with us in my groups, like, and I'm so glad kind of I went away and people have been doing their own thing, and I think it was needed. But I remember just recently, someone asked me about this or that, and I was like, you know what? I don't want to be the decider for this, for this. Like, I really don't not want to be in this position to make, like, you don't need, like, I'm just one of the members of the Minds Panel Show, or one of the members that I really don't. I mean, I do make some of the decisions just because I'm so involved in it, but I don't want to like make the decision if this person can do this or this person can do that. And really, I don't think any one person should make that decision. And I noticed this too a lot in DiviDAO, which is supposed to be decentralized, kind of like autonomous organization, is that we still look to people for authority to, or permission to do stuff. And it's like, you know, we have, each of us have our own, you know, a will and being that we don't need permission from anybody, but we do need to have some more understanding with people. And I think that more understanding comes with us more expressing ourselves and asking first who we are, where we want to go, and then projecting that out to other people, and hopefully that attracts like-minded people. And this is where I like where things are going. And I think that maybe they're too scattered on Minds, where there's too many groups, but there's a lot of good things happening in group. And where someone poses a question and people get to work out different things. But now I think it's about converting that into lobbying our collective voices. And how do we move to that step, which is hard. I don't have the answer to that. I mean, I'm trying to troubleshoot it in different groups, and that's where I'm personally at, where, okay, I know basically who I am. I know basically what I want out of life. And it's very similar to what Lee was saying, is that, you know, and this is where it comes down to our idea of, we have a fun name for it, the psychedelic bed and breakfast. But basically what the psychedelic bed and breakfast is to have, I think that's a real life onboarding process for people to live however they want to live. Like, you come to the psychedelic bed and breakfast as this permaculture, self-sustaining sanctuary to ask yourself those real deep questions. And yes, there will be psychedelics for you to do it, but you don't necessarily need to do psychedelics to ask those questions. But for people that need that tool, that help, it's there for them. And
people need psychedelics. People do. People do need psychedelics. Be honest.
Yeah. A lot of people need them.
Hey, I gotta chime in, because this whole time the old lady's been gone. She's working late, and my 2-year-old has fucking destroyed the place. I'm gonna catch hell. But anyways, you know, I'm from up north. I actually have grown up around Buffalo, Lee. I'm from Southwest Montana, and of course in the oil industry for over a decade, and that was in North Dakota predominantly. And now I live in north central Minnesota. The Minn Kota Mondak. That's where I'm from. I'm from the north. I'm a northern guy. And thinking about that desert, I know exactly what you mean, because I'm from the tundra, and I know what the Arctic's like. And there's a serenity and a bliss in it. I actually find a lot of peace. There was a lot of times out in the middle of nowhere in North Dakota, and it is barren. You look out and there is nothing. It's just ice and sky. and the celestial universe, man. It is amazing. There isn't anything to block it. And the air is so crisp and clean and cold and frigid, but it's amazing. And it is not for everyone, just like the desert. But there is a beauty in it. And I think, and plus, and I've been fortunate because whether it's that Arctic North or Southwest Montana, I grew up 90 miles from West Yellowstone. I'm from the Gallatin County. I grew up in one of the most beautiful places in this country. Um, and unfortunately, as a kid, you take it for granted because you don't know any different. You're like, oh, I'm going to go swim in a river today, or I'm going to go climb a mountain today, or I'm going to go hang out in the woods today. It was, you don't really know. And then central Minnesota, north central, all the trees and the lakes. I got 10 acres out in the woods. I love it. It's peaceful. It's isolated. But I'm always drawn to like things from my youth. Like I was hammered so much by all of these outside ways of life, and a lot of it I found through music. I've always been an extrovert in trying to get people to think. And unfortunately, in my youth, I was also very defiant, and I would scream at people, "What the fuck is wrong with you?" Kind of like Lee, wandering all the time, like, "What are people doing?" I was an asshole. I was a psychological asshole because I just dropped so much knowledge on someone about something that they just couldn't. It was too much. Anybody can only take so much at one time, and you can't have a 16-year-old kid screaming at you, "Don't you know what the fuck happened in Vietnam?" And a lot of that came from my old man, but who was a part of the civil rights movement in Southern California in the 60s. He attended Berkeley and he gave speeches about Vietnam. So of course, you're going to get handed down all kinds of weird things when you're little. And I certain things have always stuck with me. I don't. I'm 34, and I just want to throw that out there because everybody said how old they were, so now I got to. Anyways, Zola. Oh, Jesus, Zola. Okay, thanks, honey. Put that down. Here, Dad will take it. Okay, thanks. Okay, anyways, 46 and 2 was a song done by Tool. And if you know it, you know it. If you're not, check it out. If you can't remember, you should. There's a YouTube video, actually, that I would highly recommend that's just done by someone independently. And it really gives a great background to the meaning of the song. And, there's a point where in human existence as Aboriginal men, we only had 144 chromosomes. But we had a definitive connection to the Earth and everything in it and the universe. We acted as one. We actually hadn't developed an ego yet, but also in the same aspect, we weren't self-aware. And then there was this radical phenomenon, like in all instances of evolution, that are really unexplainable to some extent, that we subsequently, because we had to, in a sense, we had to develop. We had to go farther. We developed that extra 2 chromosomes that we have today, as they would say, modern man, 146. And we became self-aware. And we took this self-awareness and we developed an ego. And we also developed critical thought. And we've been hindered with this critical thought. And I think that's why so much throughout the age, and I don't mean just like the last couple of centuries, but we're talking about millenniums. Zola, come here, honey. Fatherhood never stops. Anyways, thanks guys. We have to find a way. We always find a way. And the great thinkers, the speakers, the revolutionaries, the teachers, the embodied preacher with the rifle in his hand that is so devout to his flock he could give a damn. All of it has always been there some way, somehow, forcing us amongst the degradation. Dehumanization has been upon us since they took away this way of life. We used to all be hunter-gatherers, and we used to all be a part of the group, and we used to all live off the earth with the earth. and we constantly moved. We didn't stay in one place and just rape everything. And we didn't develop all of these diseases. You know, there's a lot of really, you know, worth literature, and it is scholarly, but Guns, Germs, and Steel by Jared Diamond, and there's Pandora's Seed. It was written by one of his colleagues. I can't remember his name now, but Pandora's Seed is really good, and it's a short book, but it all goes to the fact that, you know, government started with a farmer, and because look, I can teach you to fish and you'll eat for your life, or I can make you forget how to fish and you depend on me for your fish. And that simplistic mentality really changed everything. And people kind of forgot their way. And people became dependent on certain individuals who then began hoarding. And from this, they developed power simply because there was nothing else for them to have but power over those who forgot how to live. And it grew exponentially. And there's a lot of other things, you know. That's not just like the straight answer. I mean, of course, there's a hell of a lot more, and a lot of it I just simply can't define to you in this common structure. But regardless, it's pounded on us, and it's been pounded on us. And this world is controlled by a few. It always has been. You know, not since there was a time when there wasn't a need for control. But we don't live that way anymore, you know. And even, you know, in more recent thinking, you know, into the early Americas, if you think, you know, here came this so-called Western world of civilized men who still found a place untouched, where groups of large amounts of people, I mean, the Algonquin nation was over 2 million strong. And that was an entirely working community without a government. I mean, they had a way of life, and they did have tribal law, but it was done by a communion of community, where certain tribal leaders that were just looked upon as the leader of the group because of their wisdom, were then get together and make decisions for the whole if there were necessarily problems. Because they still fought, there was infighting, but it wasn't anything that you would think of today with what we have for cultural diversity and problems with, you know, social injustice and just economic depravity, and just what happens when you have such a giant split between the wealth, you know. But we find a way. We push on. We have to force ourselves to continue. And there was, you know, the Psalm 46:2 is referring to the fact that going inside yourself, you know, you developed this ego and to be self-aware for a reason. You needed to gain consciousness of your unconsciousness. And the song itself refers a lot heavily to Carl Gustav Jung, which Maynard James Keenan is a big fan of. And his writings and philosophies are rooted in Tool. But it's true, you have to look inside yourself. And then the idea of adding these 2 more chromosomes to 148, because that would be really our next evolutionary step as people, is this super consciousness, where you are one with the earth again, you're one with the universe again, you're one with your fellow man and woman again, but yet you're also completely self-aware of it. And in turn, you make decisions based off of that awareness. And the fact that we're even doing what we're doing right now, in some way or another, and what I read and see on Minds, just is, you know, it's just a social media outlet, but I think it's the people. That other people are out there are becoming aware of something deeper inside themselves. And it's forcing you to live or ask really, really deeper questions. And you're rejecting this world because this isn't your world. It's like our great ancestors are calling to us, and they're telling us, you need to stop, and you need to put this back together. I you know, and for all the atrocity, and it's vast, and I don't try and negate that, but I guess I think more of the earth, in the sense that I don't think, even for all of the horrible, destructive crap that these fuckers do in a whole, because they just control people's lives, you know. If you take education away, it doesn't take long, you know. A few generations removed is all you really necessarily need to do to erase the history of another one, the previous one. And I mean, kids today don't know anything about World War II. And they certainly, I mean, they barely know anything about just 10 or 15 years ago. I mean, there's kids today that don't know much about 9/11. That's pretty fucking hard to wrap your goddamn mind around, to be honest with you. And they, you know, it's easy to control them because it's been a plan. But what you can't control is the human spirit. You can't control what is, in all honesty, I look at it as futile. It's evolution, and it will happen. And we will continue on, and we will get back to this planet being what it was or should be. Hold on, sweetie. And I can't stay too much longer, dude. I got someone else, but yeah, hold on, honey. I got a radio show tomorrow, so tune in for that. But I appreciate all this, but I think there's something far deeper here going on than us just trying to communicate about something else. I think we're trying to communicate to something else because we have no other choice. It's forcing us to do this. I mean, we want to. You know, it's in our hearts and it's in our will. But there's something far more greater at work, and I think it's a collective consciousness. I don't really think that there isn't anything more to it than that. And I think we'll all just kind of come to our own terms with it some way, somehow. But there's going to be an enlightening moment for everybody that is going to be a part of the future without that other sinister hand. They're just not going to make it. They can't. They're trying to defy the laws of fucking reason. And with more people becoming aware of their not just their plans, you know, because I always felt like politics, religion, you know, the whole little gauntlet there is really it's surface stuff. It's surface stuff. It's us. It's ourselves. It's understanding how we really work. Just even, you know, anatomy and how everything's connected, how everything's the same, down to our DNA. That's what always really interested me more, and space, and that's what we're a part of. And I think we're getting back to that. I really do. I don't think this whole thing's just about to go kaput. I mean, that's what they would want you to think. They'd want you to think that there's no hope, that there's only sorrow, and you might as well just not even try. You know, I don't believe that at all. I think we're at a precipice because we're stronger than they ever thought. We're proving that. We're coming up with things that don't need them. And that goes completely against everything that they've done to us. You know? We didn't drink the Kool-Aid, boys. And we went long enough not drinking the Kool-Aid that we can feel the earth again. And they're in deep shit. I mean, that's what that is.
I drank some of the Kool-Aid though.
Hey man, I did too. It's not like there was a part in my life where I was, you know, but dude, we're off it now, and that's all that really matters. And I think a lot more people are getting off the Kool-Aid. And I think that's what really, really matters. And something's gonna come to a head, man. And
it's the detox. When people come off the Kool-Aid, we need the psychedelic bed and breakfast for them to come.
There you go, dude. Absolutely. No, dude, guys, this has been a blast, but I got poop on my hands, and I gotta take care of this house. I'm in deep shit.
Have a good night.
Later, man.
Take care. Always good to have you on.
Thanks, guys.
And we'll look for your show tomorrow on the Minds Panel.
Yeah,
radio.
I'll try and get a post up while I'm at work. I gotta still figure out a time, but yeah, later.
Okay, cool. Bye. That was funny. But that's true. And what he was talking about, that's been my experience with mushrooms, and also too why I use the symbol that I use. Because the greatest, I guess, satori or realization that I got to mushrooms is not just, and I mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again. It's one thing to know it intellectually that we are one with the world and Gaia and all this kind of stuff. But it's another thing to actually experience it and be it. And that's what came through to me time and time again when I would be out in nature taking mushrooms, is that the world is a living, breathing thing, and that we are part of it. We're like, you know, cells of this of Gaia. And going back to that ownership thing, that we don't own the world, it's more that the world owns us, if anything. But it's not even that, it's that we're a part of it and that we are connected to each other. I mean, I have been inside my several different of my friends' heads talking telepathically to each other while I've been on mushrooms, and this happened like spontaneous. And at first, it freaked me out, but then later, I kind of like just went with it. But what he was talking about too is like I haven't done psychedelics in, I don't know, like 3 years, 4 years, I don't know. But anyways, recently I've been having these dreams, and one of the motifs that have been happening in the dreams have been about metamorphosis, about butterflies and cocoons. And then I had this other weird, really weird dream where, and it was about evolving my consciousness, or just evolving consciousness in general. And I think what he was saying about Tool and that I think that's what knowingly, unknowingly, even minds. One time, Bill mentioned this, that is minds the the global consciousness, or the global mind scenario makes this kind of claim too, that it'll be this artificial intelligence, or the supercomputer, or this intelligence of the whole world or whatever. And I think that's just a symbol, because I think there already is, and if you go into Carl Jung's philosophy, or his psychology/philosophy, about that there is a collective unconscious. The archetypes are the structures of this, and that there already is that. And I think, this is why we have these deja vu feelings. This is why we have all these different art trying to explain this. That 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 has always been kind of creeping around in our heads, and that has nothing to do with technology. That just has to do with the nature of the of reality, and the cosmos and stuff. Um, and psychedelics are a tool, but I also recently, or not recently, but this is kind of why I haven't done it lately. I haven't felt the need to do it. But Alan Watts kind of has this kind of great saying where once you get the message, you hang up the phone. So once you get that realization, you don't need to keep on doing it. You hang up the phone, and the harder part is to try to integrate those insights or whatever into your being. And I think this is also too, like, the whole work of Eastern philosophy, that you can't always be in nirvana or this higher state of being. And once you get that kind of like realization, it's about how do you integrate that within yourself. That's the harder part, is is just being in this world, and trying to create it to help. Because I think I think this is exactly why we have so much struggle and strife at the world at large. I think this is just I read this really good story, and it's called The Egg. I think I reminded it like 2 days ago or a day ago. And the story basically says that this guy dies, and he goes and he meets like God or whatever, and then God tells him that he has to go back into the lives and this and that, and that this universe that he's in is only made for him, and he has to live these, that not only that he is himself being reincarnated, but he's everybody else in this universe, and that and this whole thing is made for him so he could work out whatever, all these different possibilities to come to the realization of that he's the universe, and that he's this God, that this whole universe is an egg for him to hatch into this being. And this is kind of interesting story, and it kind of correlates to whatever things I was working out. But I always liked whenever I first read the Tao of physics and the Hindu mythology, was talking about everything is consciousness, and in a lot of real senses that you see these fractal working out of everything, and that the strife that we see out in the world is very similar or mirror image of the strife that we have within ourselves, and it has to do with us not fully integrating our true nature, and our true nature is being one with the world, and not being so separate, and focusing on the differences. And there are differences, but fundamentally we are all like there. You know, when the whole thing about you don't know where this skin, the atoms in your skin stop, and the atoms in the air stop. That it's all this one same kind of ocean of potentiality. That everything is this kind of quantum binary system that we dug so deep into reality to figure out that there is no solidness in the sense that we thought of before. And that's something that we still haven't integrated into our whole collective being. And in a lot of ways, I think one of the tools is psychedelics, but it's not the only one. And that's why these different archetypes keep on coming up in art to help us, or it's us working it out. And I don't know, it's just been interesting talk.
Yeah. So tell me what you know about the Alex. Do you know about the church in New York and how it works? Great church.
No, I know of it. I'm an Alex Gray fan. I know that they have different events. Like I was also following Daniel Pinchback for a while, and they will have these different conferences there. But I'm not entirely sure how the structure of their sanctuary works. But I know it's in New York, and that's something to look into. But do you have any information about that? I just know of it.
I never really know anything because I never look into it unless I'm really interested and I'm going to learn something from it. But someone mentioned to me, and I keep going back to it because it seems to me that it's based on all of his artwork, which is highly. I don't think there's a language in which you can describe the information that's coming from his art when you look at his images. Maybe there could be a language that was written down at some point of what's happening when you actually look at those things and realize, you know, I've been looking at them for years, and I think that that's really the essential part of what we need to focus on. Like when we're in those harmonic states of mind, when we utilize, you know, the plants, whether it's ayahuasca or mushrooms or whatever psychedelic. I don't really use psychedelics anymore because I being one with nature is like being on a constant psychedelic trip. I sort of just exist with it, and I try to stay cool. Lately, that's what I've been doing. It gets hot. And I don't like to, you know, I want to create an environment. In the desert, when it's 100 degrees out, you can go into a cave. There's caves in places, and it'll be like 70 degrees at the, 30 feet into the cave mouth. It's this amazing temperature difference, and that's what I'm really interested in. I'm interested in how you can create these environments. That's what our brains are for, you know. Our brains are for creating these environments where you're one with nature, and you're capitalizing on the passive energy, the air, the convection, I mean, there can be all kinds of really cool technologies that don't even, our minds are really just at the very beginning of what we could do. You know, I mean, Tesla and all this stuff is awesome for electricity, but there's so much more that we can dive into. And I'm particularly interested in pressure, where you take, you know, and convection energy, which is just temperature differences, and capitalizing on that to create systems. It's almost like you're a ghost in the environment, and I think we can live rather amazing lives being ghosts in the environment, and living as if we're not even there. Like our footprints are cool, but the environment doesn't understand that we're there, because we're completely, we take it all into consideration, and it's hard to do that. But see, you know, the environment, if you just left, if everybody left the cities, the environment would take the city back over, and it would figure out ways to grow trees out of the side of buildings and concrete, and it would come back. But I think that we can, you know, we can build amazing lives where we don't have to have highly technological cities, you know, all these architectural landscapes of the future. I really like the what's the guy's name that Jacques Jacques. Do you know, Dan?
Oh,
Who's-
The
What?
Venus. Do you know about the Venus project?
Yeah, a little bit. Not too much.
Well, I really like a lot of the concepts, but then it's just this architecture. It's these architectures, you know, that are, you know, circular, and it's really not natural. It's not a natural environment, and I think that we can create natural environments, and that's what I'd like to do. You know, I'd like to be a part of that at any point. But it really takes a group of people. It takes manpower and brain power and that collaborative energy, artistic energy, and I think that there's like a collaboration between the psychedelic bed and breakfast and the Alex Gray stuff. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I do think that is something that we could probably learn from. And I was just looking it up, the Alex Gray community, and it kind of reminds me of these early attempts in the 60s. Actually, his thing reminds me of what Timothy Leary was trying to do in the East Coast, and at the same time in the West Coast, it was who did One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It's going to come to me later, but the electric Kool-Aid acid test, and they were doing these similar things. But you know, the evolution of them are kind of these communities for us to express ourselves and to try to troubleshoot the new world. But the Venus Project, I know just a little bit of it, of just what I've seen like on post. I think I signed up for its newsletter one time, and I think too, I don't know if it was Scenario or DiviDAO. Sometimes the meetings of both of them like converged on me, but one of them, we're supposed to set up a meeting with them and to learn more. I'm not too sure on the status of that, but that is definitely something maybe we could take lessons from what they do. But I think, you know, what you're saying about the Earth ships, because like what I told you about my family, that was so cool about the Adobe house, was that it kept you warm, because it would snow down Las Cruces was where they lived, but also too it'll be like 110 in the summer, but it'll keep cool. And that, you know, the Earth, another one of my favorite places to go was the Carlsbad Caverns. And the Carlsbad Caverns have that same thing. Like, you know, you could be outside walking around and hiking, and it's like you're dying, right? It's too hot. And then you could go down into the cave, and it's this whole new world, but it's also like really nice and cool, and I always liked going there when I was a kid. Actually, I think the last time I went there was like 5 years ago. But also too, people trucking down there kind of messed up the cave. But anyways, yeah, I think this is something maybe even the next show we'll do more on. I got a message from Gov Spiders, and Gov Spiders is what do you call it? Had some problems or something happened with him. Anyways, but I think the evolution, and I think this is what we should always try to do, in my own personal belief of whatever we're doing here with the Infinite Imaginarium and Minds Panel Show, is to evolve these conversations and to keep involving them until we turn them into an actual project. And I think we have a good structure with one half of it being represented as WikiBean and the other half being represented as LobbyVoice. And simply, I think LobbyVoice or DiviDAO or whatever it is that it's kind of what we're doing, but taking it in a very serious step where we have all these great ideas that we're working out, but now it's seeing if we could implement them in such a way that they manifest within our reality. And there's a lot of stuff that we have to take into account, but I think a lot of stuff too can be answered within the act of actually doing it. And a lot of that, for each individual has to take, their inventory of their self, and it really what you were saying in that thing that people need to kind of have to be I think it said unconventional, but or have an open mind, being able to evolve, because a lot of this stuff is not going to be easy. If you were kind of saying about paradise, I think this is a very bad idea or thought that we humans kind of have. We don't, with ourselves and even with the world, we don't want to, we want to avoid the discomfort. But in the Eastern philosophy way, is that all of this is a part of each other. Love and hate and pain and suffering and joy and all this kind of stuff, is it's the sum total, and you gotta go beyond that dualistic thinking of good and bad. Nietzsche had wrote a book about beyond good and evil, and we still need to strive past that. What if we are truly going to be self-sustaining and build this new world? It's going to be hard work, but it also doesn't mean that it can't not be fun too. Like, that both, like, if you have the right outlook to it and you attract the right people and you put work into it, it also is fun and entertaining. And I think too, I liked kind of what Straight Jack was saying about his variety show. I've been kind of thinking about that too, and we mentioned it too in our meetings with the Minds radio show, is to develop this kind of like comedy show, which I think would be kind of interesting. But that, and this is where I like WikiBean, and that I think too a lot of ways, that we, and I don't know, I feel this some way with some people, how they think of me. Lately I've been getting this from somebody, but they have they and I know this is for each individual. They project people only see and hear what they only want to hear and see, and they project their own thoughts onto other people. But it's been like bugging me, because like I and I hope I don't give this projection out that I have whatever answers. I don't even think there is a real answer to anything, but that I am struggling to figure out who I am and where I'm going, and that none of this shit's easy. But that also too, that doesn't mean that all life has to be pain and suffering. And a lot of times I like to focus on the hope and stuff. But that both are valuable and both help you to grow, and embracing both parts. And I don't know. It's been bugging me, I guess, in a lot of sense. But like, especially early on, I mean, a lot of the stuff that I really cling to were stuff about the struggle of life. Even like the Buddha story of him, living in like this paradise, and then him, learning about enlightenment through suffering of seeing people suffer, and then him fasting and all this kind of stuff. And life is suffering, and it has to do with you clinging to different things and your desires or whatever. And I really do think that that, and I said this before, and I keep on saying it, and maybe this is kind of where we'll start wrapping things up, but we have, and I do this too, because I lived in Western culture and American society, and I've kind of grew up on TV myself, even though I have rejected it a lot. But I still have all these very obscure programs that are in me that have me struggle a lot with myself. And I'm in no way perfect, and no way have any answers to anything. But I do want to answer things for myself. And just because it's my answers doesn't mean I want to project that to anybody else. But I think with me opening myself up, which hopefully I do, that people could resonate with that, and that they could. And I mean, the biggest thing I get from any of this stuff is when people say, "Hey, that's cool. Like, how do I get involved with that?" The greatest compliment I ever get in any of my poetry is not when I get a bunch of likes or reminds or whatever. I don't really care about that. But when someone responds to it by writing a poem themselves. And I think that's like the coolest thing. Like yesterday, they had the Infinite Imaginarium without me, which I think I said early on. I think when everything will be a success is when I could be a fan of a show, when I don't have to even be there. And I hope we keep on evolving towards that, because I want to see what everybody else is doing. I want to be more collaborative. I want to learn. I mean, I love when we hang out and we talk, because I learn a lot from you, Lee, from everybody else. I mean, I just like this, just us hanging around the campfire talking. There's a lot of value in that, but also too that which we're already doing, and I like when I saw the LobbyVoice book, is that there's some work that we could do to hopefully start working towards these things, because I do want to really get down and help build the sanctuary, the psychedelic bed and breakfast over there in your land. And I'm willing to learn and not afraid of hard work.
Yeah, it's got all of a sudden got windy, blowing things around all here. I had to come inside. Hope everything's okay. It doesn't matter if it isn't. But have you read The Life of Mallory Paw?
No, I haven't.
It's a great book. I love it. I recommend it to everyone, because it's like the 5 stages of a I don't know, like a yogi or whatever you would consider. I hope everything's okay. Hang on, let me just yell out the window. Are you all right? All right. Sorry about that. Yeah, it's about the 5 stages and all the different things that Milarepa goes through, and he builds like 5 towers where he has to take all the stones back, and it's all like all the stories in the book are, for me, when I read it a long time ago, and then I read it to my kids when they were little, and I recommend it to people on a spiritual journey because it really shows you sort of the stages of your life and what stage you're in and what to look forward to, and sort of all the different ups and downs, because he's like this ultimately powerful person, and it's a story about each one of us, and that's what I love about it. It really got my mind into the place of which, I think is the best worldview for me. I know everybody else has a different kind of worldview, but it seems like this worldview that I've discovered is sort of just a worldview of encompassing everything and everyone. It doesn't. There's no separation, essentially. And every culture that I look into, and I sort of I don't think about, or for some reason I don't bring into my conscious all the different things I don't like, but I only bring into my conscious what I like about it, and that's that oneness. It really is. When we get into all these discussions, everybody has something to say, and every time I listen, I'll sit there and listen to people, and I listen to you, and it just gets me thinking. It gets me to, I reflect on things that I have thought about, and how similar we are, all of us. When people start to talk about their lives, and that's what amazes me too, because Wiki Being, that's what my suspicion was, is that we would discover, once we all talked about ourselves, and it was safe, and we didn't have to worry about anything. It was just a safe place to rediscover who we are, and also have that information accessible to others so that they can ask questions and learn. I mean, I wish I've always had, a system or somebody or somebody, an elder or a grandma or someone that I could ask specific questions. They could give me real answers about the world. But it's, I didn't really discover that the world that we're in isn't a place that you really need answers for. You're the one that makes the answers. You ask the questions and then you make the answers, and that's the worldview where you're one, but you're also creating. You're an active part of it. You act. Whatever act you might be in, it's all an act, every bit of it. And when you say you're a real thing or a real person or whatever, it's even hard to understand what that is. It's the realest part of me is that there's basic. I have basic functions. I wake up, I'm hungry, I need to eat something, and then I spend my best time to think is in the morning. I write or I learn. That's the best time for me to get work done. And after I've eaten a little bit, but everything is on my time, and I've designed my life like that, and I'm sure, it could change or whatever. I could be forced into whatever, but I've taken a lot of steps through life to not have to worry about much. And what you really have to do to get there is to not, you know, salesman, you know, because you really can't sell yourself to anybody or anything, because that takes the kind of effort that creates a persona, creates a image that you're trying to create about yourself to the world, and it's not necessarily who you are. It might be who you were, or you might be in the moment, but we're all ever changing, every single one of us. There's, you know, thought crimes. How be persecuted for thought crimes when every single one of us have committed every single crime that there is possible, and every single one of us are capable of the most amazing things, and most of us, we've grown up, I think, most of us, and I try to spend a lot of my time understanding everyone else, and that's what I spend a lot of my time doing, is just trying to understand where everyone else is coming from, and I think that everyone else is lost. They don't know. No one knows. I don't know who I am, because none of us are something to know, as far as, you know, the individual or the identity thing. And I really want to get into more definition and depth with identity and some of the stuff that Tech Lords was talking about, because identity is like a copy. It's a copy of the original. That's why when, you know, police officer, you encounter a police officer, they ask you for your identification, and they're asking for a copy of you, and it's really sort of a ridiculous question, but it's a purposeful question to get you to get into a non-logical response, because if it's unreasonable, if something is said that's unreasonable, then your mind, it doesn't work, because it's like a computer. It's coming back with information that doesn't compute, and so you could kind of go into a stressful state, and it literally shuts down your, you know, your full capacity to think and everything else, because it's a question that doesn't resonate with the truth. If you know, if it was a stranger coming up to you, they would ask you, "Who are you?" Not your identification. You know, like, you know, they would have their hand out, and you would say, "Well, I'm Lee, and who are you?" And that's sort of that's like a normal response when you were throughout when you were a little kid, but that response with a police officer or something like that is totally meant, you know, with any other, every official utilizes the power of sort of, they create questions that aren't reasonable questions. They're not questions based in reason. You know, everyone knows that you don't just go up to a stranger and ask for their identification, because it doesn't make much sense. And all of a sudden now it's this thing that we need to do. And identity isn't something that I could present to you with on a piece of paper, a card or whatever, driver's license. That's just a piece of plastic with an image of and some numbers, and you know, some of the numbers may be accurate, but those numbers aren't necessary to give to a stranger, you know, because it's private information. You don't tell strangers information, because all of a sudden then you're you know, that's stuff that you tell to your friends, you know, people that you trust. If you tell a stranger where you live, you know, that's a criminal, you know, and they happen to know you drive a nice car, or, you know, or wear nice clothes even, you know, they're going to come to your house. You know, that's something that you don't tell people. That's why we have privacy, you know. If everybody tells us that, they're not afraid of telling, you know, they don't need privacy or something, you know, they don't have anything to hide. I kind of feel like asking this question. If you don't have anything to hide, well, then give me the keys to your car and give me the your bank account numbers and all that. I need that stuff, right? If you don't have anything to hide, everybody needs that privacy, because that's how we develop ourselves. And that's, where we can remain idle, where we don't have obligations on our time, where we can take that time and discover who we are and what we are, and what we can do with our lives. And that's what we create with our lives. We can create anything that we want. And that's the the biggest fear is that everybody all of a sudden will wake up and they'll all of a sudden start creating everything that they want, and not everybody has a great idea. That's what, and we were saying that earlier. Well, it was kind of jokingly, because everybody has a great idea, and every one of us is connected to something amazing, but we're locked down, and how do we change that? That's the biggest question to me. How do we change people that have been poisoned, and people that have they're literally, they can't function in a world where we have to get up and work every day, and not work at a job. We don't need jobs, but work every day on ourselves. That's really what we need to work on. And if we have children,
I think that's like the scariest thing, is even for someone like me who has made time to sit down and like face themselves. That it's I mean, even for myself who like has that outlook, it's kind of hard to figure out who you are and who you really are. Trying to shove off all of this programming that you have from society, from your parents, from TV, from friends, and all this kind of stuff, and to see what is your inner self telling you to do, and is it really what you're meant to do? And I mean, I think too, a lot of times you have to be satisfied with there is no real concrete answer. That is an evolutionary thing, that it evolves, that it changes. Like that's like one thing the I Ching tells you, that all things are change, right? And that in different moments, according to the whole movement of the universe, that at a certain point there is a loose base answer for what that change is concerning the outer world and your inner world. But that evolves and changes as the seasons and the world turns around the sun and everything, and that we're in this like cosmic dance with everything. And it's really something worth doing. And I think this is why there's all this crap around us to stop us from doing that, because that's like the ultimate goal for us, to figure out how do we fit, not in the clog in the machine, but how do we fit in this elegant dance, or this orchestra of all of life. And I think this is where you find the greatest happiness or fulfillment, at least for myself, when I'm doing some kind of art. And I use art very loosely. I mean, sometimes even just sitting down where I have no thought but what's happening in front of me. And when I'm tending the garden, or I'm hiking, or I have had some really great experiences. I was probably a little stoned up into some trees in Hume Lake, and just being there with the big old redwoods and just being. That's such a hard thing to do. Like I notice this with a lot of people. That we're so, and I do like technology and stuff, but we're so distracted too with technology that it's hard for people just to sit down and do nothing, absolutely nothing. They have to constantly be on the phone, and this is part of the reason too why I don't have a cell phone, because I noticed that every time I had to do that, I thought, oh, I need it for work and this and that, but I have kind of an addicted personality that I would find myself looking at the phone for no reason. I'd be like, what the fuck am I doing? This is like, I don't need to constantly look at the goddamn phone. Just me personally. It's hard.
Yeah, the phone can be a problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And at the same time, too, mines could be a problem. I'm constantly checking it, even though it's good in some respects, but in other respects too, you know.
Do you work on a laptop?
Yeah, I have a desktop. I bought a desktop. And it's funny, before mines, I never had I mean, I had, like, I kind of went away from technology for a while. That's just because, like, I majored in computer science, and I kind of went into the whole thing, and I got burned out, and I was like, fuck this. And then I became kind of like, uh, uh, just like, I went the opposite direction, and about art and poetry, and I don't need technology and all this kind of stuff. And that's why I didn't have a computer. I would go to the library, or use friends or whatever computer. And I had a cell phone for a while. And then it wasn't until I saw Minds that I had this forward thinking of that the real value in Minds would be, or where I saw is creating content. And I wanted to figure out a way to do that. And I knew that I didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I had a couple ideas, but I knew in order for me to do that, I needed a desktop. So then I invested in buying a computer, and I bought a pretty good desktop. So when I was ready, I could do whatever I wanted to do. And this is something too that Douglas Rushkoff said to us, and he even mentioned the cell phone. And he's like, these cell phones are you're just a consumer of media. If you just have a smartphone, right? That you're not part of the creating of the content. You're just consuming it and being extracted of value. That you don't have that capability to what the real power of everything that's happening here is creating these new dreams of stuff, of trying to express yourselves. And when you have like a laptop or a computer, you actually become your own production factory, and you take away that power from just consuming whatever on YouTube or whatever it may be. That you actually become, that's the power that we have in our laptops and our computers, is that we're our own production company. You could literally produce a show. You could literally edit video. You could do a lot of different things that just 5 years ago would cost a shit ton of money to do. And this is where, I mean, also too, I mean, I mentioned this to Ghost Spiders, but we should develop our own development team when Minds opens up their open source code, which is, I think, going to happen in 3 weeks, I believe is the last time when I talked to Bill. But all these ideas that we have of functions or things that will help us on Minds is that we can we still need to like design them in a sense, like make a little white paper of them, but we could actually do it. I know a little bit of like my background that I did C++ and HTML and Java, but that was like a long time ago. But and I was just telling them that I should brush up on that, and we could write our own functions of whatever we need, and I think that will help evolve Minds to the next level as well. That we could have a wiki bean function for Minds. We could have a LobbyVoice function in Minds, and whatever else we could imagine. An infinite imaginarium, the Imaginarium, where it's like a function where people could go, and it's like a group, but it's a group where you could create artwork. You could collaborate on music. It's like a real time hangout, but it's more functional where you could collaborate on all sorts of input. I mean, that's like a big ass project, but there's no reason why we can't do that. They're giving us the keys to the kingdom of minds, and it's up to us to do whatever we see fit with it for our own selves.
I wish the Imaginarium were also for the kids, like in school. Replace school with Imaginarium.
Yeah.
Like kids go to 18 years of school, they go to Imaginarium until they decide they want to go do something else. And there's no like set age limit. Like if you're 16, you decide, I'm going to go into nuclear physics. Well, then you're 16, you go into nuclear physics. No big deal. There's like no set path or whatever. It's just you start out in the Imaginarium and you imagine who you are, and you get exposed to all that you could be exposed to, and then and then you naturally gravitate to what you.
Yeah, I think that's a really great way, and I've thought about this too because I used to work at a school, and my mom's a principal, and anyways, but and this is what happened to me early on. I went to a technical high school, and I thought I never asked myself the questions of who I was. I always try to figure myself out in that early age of the context of who I thought people thought I was, like in respects to my family or to society. And I kind of went into technology or computer science to kind of make my mom proud, I guess, in a sense. And I liked it, but in a lot of respects, I didn't like it. And I was too young to make up my mind of what I actually wanted to do because I didn't even know who I was at that time. And so then I burned myself out, and I rejected it, and I went the opposite direction, and I wasted a lot of time, I guess, in a lot of sense, only to find myself back at technology and working my way back to that, which I always find funny that I kind of, in a lot of ways, went full circle. But in a lot of respects, too, I think some of what makes me different than other people that I talk to in this sense is that that I did spend that time and I still spend a lot of time asking my questions of who am I, what am I doing, and where do I fit going into the Imaginarium, because I think it's important because you see everybody have these the standard archetype of our lives is that people have these midlife crises, right? They do these things, they go to college and they pick up a major and they do this and that, and then it's not until like later on when they're already knee deep in being in debt and in the family, then they ask the critical question of who are they, and and what have they become, and what do they really want to do, and then they waste. It's not necessarily a waste, but in a lot of sense it is a waste because they've been doing something that they're not really even fully aware that they want to do, or if this is exactly what they're supposed to be doing. And I think this leads to a lot of stuff. I know for myself it did, and I would have loved to been encouraged when at a young age to keep on dreaming and to keep on asking these questions. I think we mentioned this in our first Imaginarium of you tell a kid, oh, you need to grow up and take school seriously, but in a lot of ways that we as adults and a lot of adults or even a lot of people need to be more like kids and be able to dream and imagine and use their imaginations. And I think we'll all be a lot better off if we're able to do that and had an environment that encouraged us to do that.
Where are we at on time for the show?
Oh, we're like at more than 2 hours, I think. So I think we're good. But it's been...
All right, well, let's cut it off. But
yeah.